Hello, and welcome to today's edition of Marketing Qualified Lessons, marketing tips for financial advisors. Today, we're going to talk about how to create a marketing budget. So, if you have one, this is going to be a good refresher and maybe an opportunity for you to audit how you're spending your dollars into marketing. And then when you allocate those dollars, what are you actually spending them on? Or if you're starting from scratch, this is going to give you the foundation for what you need to know so that you are spending appropriately for where your business cycle is. So let's talk about why you are here today. And it's going to be one or of these three, or maybe two or all of them of these of, am I spending enough to meet what my growth goals are? Am I spending too much money? Or am I spending my money on the right areas? So we're going to cover all three of those things. So a little bit about me, of why I'm here talking to all of you about a marketing budget. So I have a couple of decades experience within marketing, the last 11 plus within financial services. So I spent a decent amount of my career helping financial advisors achieve their goals through marketing. With all of the advances in technology, and how people live, of being on social media, the research they do, the amount of information that we have at our fingertips, the ability to use money to grow your business, to reach more people has become easier. But now there's a lot more decisions. There's a lot more options for what you could have done compared to 20, 30, 40 years ago. Also, I'm a big nerd for strategy and data and planning and marketing, and passionate about all this. And I've had a handful of advisors that are affiliated with Independent Advisor Alliance that have reached out for some kind of information of what should I spend, validating things. And that's what I'm here for, to help spread the information to all of you. So let's dive in. What should you expect in today's session? We're going to create a plan. So you're going to have some kind of idea walking out of here of which one of these methodologies that I'm going to introduce you to is right for you. And you're going to be able to walk out of here with a plan for how to create a marketing budget or to look at your current expenses. You're going to understand the two that I'm going to cover, which are the customer acquisition cost and the revenue-based budgeting, and then have those clear next steps to walk out with. Let's take a look at the two common methods, starting over on the left of customer acquisition cost. This is a little bit of starting backward than starting from, okay, if I'm starting from scratch and I have no idea, here's where I want to be. That's going to be more on the revenue-based budgeting. This customer acquisition cost or client acquisition cost is going to be auditing your past efforts and where your money is allocated toward it, with all of the marketing costs to bring in a new client, to make sure that it all adds up. So this is everything that it takes to get that done. So that's advertising, your search engine optimization, social media marketing, search engine marketing. If you're doing an in-person event, you're creating landing pages, who's actually going to do it? So you might need to hire or outsource or whatever. We'll get through those options later on. The creative costs. So if it's content or ebooks, infographics, physical brochures, the cost of actually the creative that goes into that, the text, the images, the software, the hardware, all of that, and then all of your tech stack. So we'll dive more into that in some of the future slides. The other method is the revenue-based budgeting. This is going to be looking forward. You can obviously take a look backward with this approach too, but this is where you're going to allocate, say, 5 to 15% of your practice's revenue toward marketing. That number, it's a pretty big range, and that number is going to be dictated by what are your goals, what's your fee structure, what all your revenue is, and where you want to be in 1, 5, 10 years from now, to make sure that it's adding up. So then in each, we've got categories then, and we're going to dive into each one of those of technology, people, content, distribution, the analysis. How are we getting all of this done? So let's dive in to a little bit more information that you will need before you get started. You're going to need to know some of your practice metrics. So what's your revenue, what's your AUM, the number of clients. So some of those basics that you probably know off the top of your head. Next is your mindset, your goals, your strategy. Where are you trying to go? So at a very high level, boiling down to these three of growth. So I have clients, but I want to get more clients. Maintenance, that might be, I have enough. I would take referrals if the right person came, but really I'm looking more to manage my practice. I've hit that bottleneck that I'm not really able to grow at this time. We can talk about that on a later webinar. But for right now, the maintenance is just, I have enough clients. I just want to better communicate to them. And then last, succession. So I'm looking to exit the industry in, say, the next 1, 3, 5 years. What's the appropriate amount for me to be able to spend? I had a conversation with an advisor recently that was looking to exit within the next 3 years, but was also looking to transition their RIA. He was asking me about spending. And I said, look, you still want to have the good value if you have not landed a succession plan, or if you're going to sell your practice or some kind of M&A deal. You don't want to lose the value of it, but it's not really the time to start spending a whole lot. So making sure that it makes sense. The other thing I want to hit on the maintenance side of, even though I said I have clients, I'm probably good. I would take on the right ones, but better focus my time on client communication. That is so important, because there was an article from wealthmanagement.com a couple of years ago that said that the number one reason why people fire their financial advisor is not due to a lack of results, but instead a lack of communication, because there is a perception that you're asleep at the wheel, that the market is, if it's going up 18%, that I expect my portfolio to go up at least 18%. But that communication of, here's what's going on, here are the things that I'm reading, here's my thought leadership, all of that, that's still important, because a lot of times when people think of marketing dollars, of investing in that, they're thinking about growth, they're thinking about new clients, but it's important to take care of and retain those existing ones to start. And then all of your existing data, so we mentioned your AUM, your fees, your number of clients, and then any of your existing expenses. We want to make sure that we know all of those going into this. Let's get into the first one, the customer acquisition cost. So for this, you're going to start at the bottom of your sales funnel. You want to know what your sales funnel is. Where are your different stages? So hopefully you've been keeping good track of that when you're talking about client acquisition, that you know those documented steps of, they go from the top of the funnel, the middle of the funnel, and then to the bottom of the funnel where they're actually signing with you and becoming a client. So to make sure that your end, what that target is, and those closing stages matches what your goals are. So let's take a look in a little bit more detail. So the methodology, like I said, you're going to start with your end goal. How many clients do you want? You're going to need to know your conversion rates. So if your last one, your last stage before signing is an in-person visit, what is the closing percentage for you when those people are in your office or a Zoom meeting, whatever, that final conversation, what percent of those are actually converting over to clients? Knowing what those stages are, so you can be very simple and say awareness, consideration, decision. So just 3 stages, you can take a look at that. Or if you have a more robust and articulate sales funnel, it's fine. Either one of those is completely standard. And then calculate the need for each stage. So let's dive in there. Let's start at the bottom of this funnel. Let's just say that we want to bring on 1 new client, say per month. That's going to be our close stage. So say the one before that of your in-office visit, or if it's virtual, that you close 25%. You might be saying that it's a little bit higher than that, but just for this example, just to make the math easy, let's say 1 out of every 4 people that come in is actually becoming a client. So your conversion rate is 25%. So if you want one new client, you're closing 25%. That means you need to get in front of 4 people. Let's say that you're going to have 2 discussions before. So we'll just skip ahead and go to the first and second discussion. That if you're having a 25% conversion from each one of those, that those people are dropping out. Now, if you're getting 1 out of 4, instead of 4 people being in the in-office visit, you need 16 to be in the second discussion. If 25% of those are converting over, then that means you need to get in front of 64 people. And then let's just say your overall reach is you're getting about 10% of those people that come in. So you can see how much in just these 5 stages of where the conversion rates mean of how many more people that you need to get in front of. You need to get in front of 640 people to go 10, 25%, 25%, 25% to get 1 new client. Again, this is more just trying to make the math easy. I'm sure that especially later on in the funnel, your conversion rates are higher. I just want to make it easy. So let's dive into an actual example in this scenario of an advisor that is going to bring in a client at $1 million, and let's say that your fees, just to make the math easy, is charging 1% of AUM as their fees. So your revenue is $10,000 and your marketing costs are $25,000. So again, knowing that we are looking to make all the numbers make sense, you can see easily that the cost is over the revenue. But let's just back into this. Of this scenario, you can see each one of those stages. It's 640 of what that cost is per lead. That's 64 all the way down. So if you took a look at your revenue off of this 1 new client, $10,000. Of course, next quarter, you will not have that, that expense. There will be a client, so you can factor that into your client retention and communication strategy and into that budget. But just for acquiring that new person, you can see that for this example, it doesn't make sense, that the cost is higher than the revenue. It's going to be a little bit more complicated when you get into different numbers of, it might be 3 new clients. So then your actual total revenue and then that reach is going to be much different than the numbers that are on here. So if this is you, if you're finding out, then what do you need to do to pivot? One is to reduce the spending. You can see from that easy math that the $25,000 spend is much higher than that $10,000 of revenue. But knowing year after year, obviously that'll make up. Second is to find a more effective channel for the top of funnel. If you're getting in front of, if those conversion rates are staying the same, instead of that 640, maybe that needs to be 1,500, more than double of what that reach is. So that effective channel, what I mean by effective channel, that this might have been a seminar, a webinar, a client appreciation event, and bring a guest, whatever that is, to get people into the top of your funnel that are in your CRM, that you need to change what your tactic is. Because number 3 is to increase your reach. If you're getting a bigger number up here and you're maintaining that 10% acquisition or conversion over to the next stage and then 25% down, that you just need to make that number at the top bigger. Or last, improve your conversion rates. This is something that of more of just practice management, that you might find out that if that number is true, that you're closing 25% of the people that actually come into your office. I'm sure all of you are performing at a much higher percent, but you might need coaching or practice, training to improve that conversion rate. Or what can you do in the middle funnel? And that's going to be for a much later webinar where we'll go through the content and communication across those different sales funnel stages to make sure that you are successfully converting those people over. So like I said, it's a very simple way to take a look at your past expenses and make sure that it's adding up. It's a little bit more sophisticated than just looking at a simple return on investment of, if I spent this much and it resulted in this much, was it positive or negative? This is more going to take a look at an in-depth look at where you are spending your time and making sure that that specific event or campaign or whatever is actually netting in good results. So say you did uh, let's say you signed up for some kind of database that has people, you found your 640 people. You might say, I either need to spend less on this, completely abandon it, or expand what my reach is. So now let's move on over to the revenue-based budgeting. This is my preferred method for doing, for creating a budget, especially from scratch. Just like for the customer acquisition costs, there's a couple things that you'll need to know. You'll need to know what your fees are, your AUM, and of course your business stage. You can use a calculator to be able to quantify all of these data points that we'll need, and of course validate what your results are, and then make decisions and make a plan. And that's what we're going to do here on these next couple slides. So I actually created a very easy to use, simplistic calculator in Excel that I will share for you all, that in the console over to the left side, that you can actually see as a resource. So let's take a look at our marketing budget calculator for financial advisors. There's only 3 things that you need to input before you get your end result, and then of course which category that you're allocating your money toward. So let's say your AUM target is 100 million, and I'm charging 1%, and I am in, you can see there's a drop down, succession, maintenance, growth, or I added another one, heavy growth. Let's go into the heavy growth one. We want to get a lot of new revenue going. So you can see step 2 here is to validate your results. So 100 million at 1%, that's $1 million of revenue. You're in heavy growth. So that means that you're going to allocate 15% of your revenue towards your marketing budget. You can see, keep an eye here where that 15% is. If I change what this is to maintenance and change it down to 10, and of course with succession, we're going to spend even less. But let's go back to that heavy growth. That's $150,000. So now how do I actually spend that? I did the work for you of allocating a percent for each of these 5 major categories of what to spend, and then what that actual dollar amount looks like. This is not written in stone. This is in very light pencil. You have the eraser in your hand for you to modify where you see fit. This is just to get you started. This is just to give you those guardrails of what I suggest that I would set up. Number 1 is personnel. Who's actually doing it? In a future slide, we're going to get into actually how to look at these different categories and your different options. Number 2 is content. You need to be getting in front of people with information, and that's either ebooks, brochures, the actual event itself. What are you going to get in front of people so that they want to have that next conversation with you? Next up is your advertising. How are you going to promote this? So this could be anywhere from digital advertising, your Google AdWords, your LinkedIn ads, your Facebook ads, buying an email list, lead generation services that you can opt into. So however you're going to get those people to be the top of the funnel. Next is your technology, broken into 2 different sections. Your software. So what are all the applications that you're going to need to be able to do something? So if it's from graphic design to editing, to an email system, to your website, to designing some kind of presentation or whatever it is. The last one is your hardware. So what do you actually need to do to get the job done? Right now I'm presenting via video. So I needed to have a webcam. I have my light. I want to have good audio. All of those key factors of hardware of what you need to have. So you can see that $150,000 breakdown and what is included in each one of those. So let's go back to our slide of the revenue-based budgeting and actually creating what that plan looks like. So before you start, obviously you'll need to know these things to attract the right people. Of who do you want to attract? What are their pain points? What are the solutions that you offer? to solve those pain points, and where do they live? And what I mean by that is not what is their physical address, but where does that investor, where do they frequently operate? Are they going to be interested in going to a winery and having an event? Is it going to be a webinar on demand because they've got a busy personal life and they just want to watch a 15-minute webinar to learn more about you and your services? So wherever they live, for example, you're probably not going to get me with direct mail. Anything that looks like junk, I really don't even get that much printed mail, probably just going straight into the trash. Versus the other side of my neighborhood, which is made up of several retirees or pre-retirees. They might be more interested in something like that versus getting an email or something digitally. So knowing where do they live, that's how you can plan for what's the best approach. So now I want to walk through those 5 different areas of how are you going to reach them? How are you going to promote it? What are you going to say? All of that. So you've got different options there of what are you going to create? So if it's like videos, blogs, whatever, your content, what are you going to do? Are you going to make it yourself or are you going to buy it? Making it yourself is going into that personnel. If you remember from the Excel document that the 25% allocated toward personnel is only $37,000. You are not going to get a marketing person at a $37,000 salary. So you're either going to need to tweak some of those measurables or you're going to outsource. There's freelancers, there's subscription services, there's agencies, there's teams like the Creative Capital Group at Independent Advisor Alliance that you can outsource these things to that is going to free up your time, your energy, and also this is what their job is. They're just going to be better at it. So being able to delegate, so making that decision, do I want to have control there or do I want to buy it? So that might be a subscription service like your Broadridges, your FMG suites. And of course, there's pros and cons with both of those of either making it or buying software. Talk through all of those things of how you're going to create, edit, just all the things that have to do with content. Your hardware, so what do you need to do to actually get the job done? And then how are you going to get it in front of people? How are you going to publish it, either on your website, your social media, all of those things that you need to do to actually attract the right person. So your next steps, before we wrap up, to know what your business plan is. What are you trying to do? What does that vision board say of where you want to be in 1, 3, 5, 10 years? And then allocating those growth metrics to where you want to be. Number 2 is to audit your spending. If you've been active in marketing before, this might just be a refresher for you. It might be a chance for you to audit and evaluate how are you spending your dollars to make sure it adds up. Number 3, decide on the method that best works for you. I gave a very simplistic view of using the revenue-based model, but there's also the customer acquisition cost, and it might go into the audit your spending of, I did this campaign, I signed up for X lead generation service, and I spent this amount, and it equated to this much business. Did it actually make sense? And then where did the ball get dropped? Like we're in that conversion. Where did it? Where could I have improved, or spent better, or done a different method? Or you might just go with the revenue-based one of saying, if I want to get to this level, this is what I need to spend. Here's where I need to spend it at, and then get to work. Last is just ask for help, confirm your findings. We've got a wonderful team here on the marketing team at Independent Advisor Alliance that we like having those kind of strategy consulting conversations to help you get going on the right page. So to wrap up, it's time to get going. This is the time of year to be looking at our budgets, to making our plans, to making those resolutions. Where do I want to be next year so that we're going into the future and then backing up, we're all popping champagne bottles and going, what a great year that this was. How are we going to get there? So making that plan and actually making the effort toward allocating those funds and using the method that's right for you. So I want to thank you all for watching and attending. Don't hesitate to download all the information that we have that's in the console to reach out to me personally. You can connect on LinkedIn, email me, whatever, just so that we get going. So I want to thank you for watching. Thank yourself for investing the last 25-ish minutes of your time and energy to learn all of this stuff and then what you'll do moving forward. So I want to thank you all for watching, and we'll tune in soon. Thanks.